What does geometry have to do with Bible study? Welcome to Bible on the Go with Dr. Dan. Well, geometry is a lot like, math. But geometry sometimes shows up in the Bible, and in particular, it's a little trick that I'm going to show you to appreciate another truth in the Bible. You see, we have maps in our Bible because everything the Bible describes really happened. And we can travel to those places in an airplane. We can drive from north to south in an automobile and go from site to site to site in the land of Israel because the Bible's telling us the truth. It gets the distances right, it gets the rivers right, it gets the cities right. But anyway, what does geometry have to do with this? Well, Palestine in particular was where many of the events in the Old Testament and the New Testament happened. In fact, the sites kind of run into each other. I mean, they're real close to each other because it's not that big a piece of real estate. So the directions in the Bible get real specific, and come to find out thousands of years later, they were very accurate. And every new caveat or truth that we discover having to do with the maps in our Bibles becomes a beautiful overlay of truth, something that we remember every time we go back to that map. And then when we're reading in the text, we start to recognize some of those names like Jezreel and Megiddo and Kishon. Well, what does that all have to do with geometry? Well, there's not some super secret little figure out there that you can discover some great truth, i.e. Bible codes, okay, which really weren't anything, right? But if you start going up the coastline in Palestine, you'll notice it's really straight until it gets to this little bump that's referred to, some scholars refer to as the antelope's nose. Well, that's actually the top of Mount Carmel. And there's a river that goes down the mountain into a valley, and it's the Kishon River. And if you start kind of at the bottom of the Kishon River and draw an upside down triangle, there's your geography, okay? If you do that, you will run into mountains on one side and cities on the other, and you can even see in the geography a natural upside down triangle. And there's two cities that show up in this area. One is Megiddo, and another one is Jezreel. So we find that the Bible refers to the Jezreel Valley, which is that area, and the Valley of Megiddo as well, which is that same area. In fact, Jezreel was a city and Megiddo was a city. They're about 9 miles away from each other as the crow flies, so to speak. But there's a road that goes through Palestine that was later called the Via Maris, the Way of the Sea. And just as you would imagine, that road skirts the edge of Palestine all the way up until it gets to this upside down triangle, and it goes east and west before it connects back north and south all the way up to Damascus. Well, if this is the only east-west passage on the main road in Palestine, and it's in a valley surrounded by mountains, wouldn't you know that that would become a place of conflict? One of the first times we hear about it is when Elijah seizes the prophets of Baal after the big showdown on Mount Carmel, and he says, "Seize the prophets of Baal, don't let any of them escape." And so he kills the prophets of Baal there by the Kishon River, which is right by Jezreel and Megiddo. And King Josiah, Josiah that was 8 years old when he became king, he was going up to a battle against the king of Assyria, but one of the kings of Assyria's allies, Pharaoh Necho II, cut him off at the pass at Jezreel and killed him. and it was a big tragedy in Israel. Well, the name Megiddo might sound familiar because in Revelation 16:16 is the one place that the big conflict of all the end times is mentioned, Armageddon, in Revelation 16:16. Well, naturally, because they sound similar, there are some scholars that say, look, this has always been a place of conflict. This is where the big conflict is going to take place. I lean that way myself. But what we see is, if you look at the Hebrew, it says it's called in Hebrew, Harmageddon, means the mountain of Megiddo. Well, hey, geographically speaking, that's kind of a problem, because where Megiddo is, there's no mountains. Like the closest thing is there's the Hill of Moray, Mount Tabor, right, Mount Carmel up further up, but not anywhere particularly close to Megiddo. So it might just be symbolic, or not to get into the complete weeds about the end times, it might actually be the location, and it's just mentioned that way for some reason. But the point is, the more we learn about geography, and the little tricks we learn, like, hey, I can draw a little upside down triangle after I go down the Kishon River just a little bit, once I get to that antelope's nose, then hey, I can say, oh look, there's Megiddo, there's Jezreel, there's these other mountains on the side. That's fascinating, right? And you can see it on the map if you know what you're looking for. Well, we learn more about the Bible, and the stories just leap off the page. So both Jezreel and Megiddo are located in this upside down triangle, and now you know more about what geometry has to do with Bible study. Thanks for watching Bible on the Go with Dr. Dan. If you like these videos, the best thing you can do is hit that red button called subscribe. You only have to do it once, and it doesn't cost a single thing. Praise God!